Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Apologies for being a little bit late. A technical issue. I picked up the wrong StreamYard podcast when I came in and it wouldn't let me come in. And thankfully, Bobby noticed that I had the wrong heading up. So we're here now. Welcome everybody who's watching or going to watch this live, and welcome those of you who are watching the replay. So, Bobby, how are you today, first of all? Lovely to have you.
I'm good. I had a good weekend, recharged the batteries, and looking forward to I've got a full week of events. I'm probably going to about 8 networking events this week. And one of them I'm going to see you on Friday, hopefully. We'll see you on Friday. So yes. I'm actually doing 4 on Friday. So doing 1 in the morning. I'm doing some posting parties. I've got my own networking events. I'm actually doing 5 on Friday. I'm doing 5 events on Friday. So by the time you see me, real live events. So by the time you see me on Friday, Karen, I probably won't have a voice.
You've been networked out. So Bobby, tell me, before we get into today's topic, which is to navigate life's storms and emerge stronger, and talk about how life throws challenges our way, and how to discover our resilience and get through the storm. I want to ask you a bit about your networking. Do you find that what do you find that you're achieving through all of those networking events that you're attending in a week?
So confidence brings me confidence, a lot of confidence. And it's been a whole journey for me from being a bit of a big introvert and having a fear of even speaking in front of more than 5 people. And I'd kind of mastered online networking and had my own events online. And I really thought, well, I need to kind of conquer the face-to-face stuff. And so I just followed the same format that I did before for the online stuff. And that was just go to as many events as I could. And that's what I did. So over the last 3 months, I'd probably say I've been to 50 face-to-face networking events. And it allows me to practice networking, practice being awkward in awkward situations and just getting used to feeling awkward and when there's silence in a conversation, of knowing that's okay for people not to talk, but also bringing my experience in from recruitment and having questions already preloaded in my mind when I go to an event. Okay, well, these are the questions I'm going to ask if there's an awkward silence and I feel like I've got to continue that conversation somewhere. And really using those moments to improve on my skills. And then obviously to counteract on top of that, I'm making great connections. I'm making connections for other people in my network. And of course, I'm getting leads from that as well for my own businesses. But if we go into these events with the mindset of, hey, I'm going to meet some great people and I'm going to connect some of the great people to great people, everything else comes from that. And so I go to these events with an open mind of, right, who am I going to see? Who am I going to help? Listen out for those keywords, and it really does. It does work. It does help. But boy, it's going to be a busy week. It's going to be a very busy week.
That's awesome. That really is relevant to our topic today, because we're talking about some of the challenges that we have and how to get through them. And what you've just explained is one of your methods of getting over your shyness, your what you call introvert, that you're an introvert, and your fear of going and speaking to people and meeting people and, just really getting out there. And I think you've told a little bit about your story around that. Do you want to share in this context of life of one of your inspiring stories about how you overcame an adversity in your life, Bobby, and how you found the resilience in the middle of the storm to get out of it?
Yeah. Well, straight off the bat, there was one thing that I saw or heard. It might have been on a TikTok or could have been a quote. I can't remember. And it was about ships. And it was like, ships are really safe in the port or the harbor, but that's not what ships are made for, right? Ships are meant to be going out, right? And so I had this mindset of I'm always going to be in that port because I want to be safe, not realizing that if I want opportunities to come my way regularly, I have to go and find opportunities as well. So I have to leave the safety of the port or the harbour, go out into the rough waters, then hopefully find another safe port so I can stop for a bit, have a drink, have a rest, recuperate, but then carry on. And so my journey started, well, all my life has always been something that I've had to overcome, but really in the last few years, I ended up living in a garage and starting 3 businesses. And I had another business which was very successful before that, and that kind of gave me the confidence to understand that I had a different way of thinking compared to other people. And that business was with my wife, my ex-wife, and we built a very successful business together very quickly. Over 2 years, we built a business from $70,000 turnover year 1 to 4.5 million in year 2. And yeah, it was crazy. Huge. And it was crazy, like even when you say that, it blows my mind, because my understanding of business was that was all I knew. So I expected everyone would have the same story. And when I started to network and tell people about that journey, they would be in shock on the face. They'd be a bit like you, like, wow, that's amazing. And that started to give me more confidence, because I was scared to even talk about things, because I thought it's not the right thing that I'm saying, it's wrong, and that why would people want to listen to me? And slowly I started to build up this confidence, because anytime I would speak to somebody about what I did, they'd never done that. And so how did you do that? Yeah. And so I'd be like, this is how I did it. And I was thinking, oh my God, these business owners who I'd be fearful of normally, the word founder, I was very corporate, made me very fearful of meeting directors and founders. But now they wanted to hear from me. They were like, how did you do that? And I'd be like, oh, okay, cool, that's pretty nice. And so slowly give me more and more confidence. And I joined BNI because I had an idea for a recruitment business, because my background is recruitment. I joined BNI in Melbourne, and we were face to face. This was just before the pandemic hit, and I was, oh my God, doing that 40 seconds. I was just terrible, and I had members calling me up, going, "You've really got to practice that," because I just couldn't stand up in front of. I think the second time I'd done a 40-second pitch was an open day at BNI, and it was for construction and trades. I think there was about 80 people in the room or something like that. I just couldn't do it. I could not do it. And so luckily enough, in a strange world, the pandemic was coming around, and people were talking about it, and how everything's going to be locked up and all these kind of things, and we didn't even know what that was at the time. But we're coming into that first year just before we went into lockdown in Melbourne, and trying to get my business off the ground. It was very difficult, but unfortunately the story does take a turn for the worse. And my wife, my ex-wife, we actually had split up because relationship wasn't just going so well from my side of things, and I made a decision that I needed to move on with my life, and left the relationship. And unfortunately, about 3 months after I decided to do that, and I left the relationship, my ex-wife, she committed suicide in February of that year. And suicide's hard in any world. Doesn't matter what the reasons might be. I loved her. I still love her. It's not like that wasn't the reason why I left. There was plenty of other reasons why. And my whole world was just totally turned upside down. Even though I was in this mindset of moving forward with my life, it still meant that I had a lot of things that I had to deal with in my head, and it was a very challenging time. And to talk about coming through storms, I thought this is just one big storm and that's never going to stop. And I remember lying in bed and just having no energy, no power, no thoughts apart from death. It was horrible. It wasn't the most fun part of my life. And when I look back at that, I was just a heap, wasn't even living. I was just this thing that had these thoughts, and the thoughts weren't nice thoughts. I had to deal with a lot of demons, especially going through something like that, and then having to deal with family and her family and the business. What's going to happen with the business? And in my mind, the business was part of us. We was something that we built. Unfortunately, other people in the world did not have the same view. And so as we start approaching towards to come to the lockdown, I'm in a legal battle with family all around the world, really. And the pandemic was really a godsend for me. If that didn't happen, Karen, we wouldn't be speaking today. If we did not go through that pain, because what it allowed me to do was, number one, I'd left this business, I left this relationship. In theory, I had to go and find a job because I had to support myself. But I didn't have to do that because there was no job to get. There was no one really hiring through that point, and everything went online, which really played to my mindset at that time. I didn't have to get up, I didn't have to get changed, didn't have to really. Most people were just sat there in their pajamas. And the good thing about that point was, when I was joining online networking events, people were going through tough times as well, and it was nice to hear their tough times, so I could forget my tough times. And so I threw myself into online networking. I'd go to 4 events a week. I'd do 20 one-to-ones a week just to fill that time up, because I knew that if I was on the screen with somebody and I was just talking, that my mind would be just not thinking about anything else but what was on the screen. And it meant that I'd got 4 or 5 hours a day of freedom from terrible thoughts like, no one likes you, everyone hates you, you've got no money, you're a loser, like that everything you did for that company was by chance. You should kill yourself. What's the point you being around? Who wants you? And so all these things are going through your head, and sometimes the bad things can give you that energy and that fire to push through, but you have to be able to look at those things and make it a positive in a way. And so I had this fire in my belly, in my mind, which was negative. It was negative. I wanted to destroy everything around me. I wanted to, people were trying to hurt me. I wanted to destroy them. And I knew that wasn't the way to go. But again, I only learned this because of meeting someone like you, meeting amazing people in business, especially mindset coaches and business coaches. And they would hear my story and they would be like, make sure you use this for good and not for evil, because you could easily go and use it for evil. You could easily go down that track. And we all know that doesn't end up in a nice spot. And so I thought, well, what can I do that's good? Because I didn't think I was good at anything. I still didn't think I was good at anything. And it wasn't until I started doing so much networking that I would meet someone like Karen. We'd have a one-to-one on Zoom and we'd be talking about what we do. And I'd go, oh, Karen, I've got someone who might be interested in speaking to you. Would you like to speak to them? They do X, Y, Z. And Karen would go, yes, of course. And so I'd do an introduction. So then I started doing more and more and more of it. And I'd get a little bit of a dopamine hit from it. I'd be felt really good because I would be introducing 2 people that I thought were amazing. And so I started doing it more and more, just to be selfish, because I thought, okay, well, I can at least make myself feel good about myself by doing that.
Yeah.
And so, I'm in lockdown, I'm living in a garage and living on Centrelink, and the government turned around to us and go, oh, you can use your super if you want. And I thought, okay, well, I need to use my super, I need to pay some rent, I want to get my website done. And so, all these things that I'm talking about, it's not like it was one Monday, it was one thing, and then the Tuesday. This would be months and months and months of just grinding, getting out of bed, making a difference to my life. Don't get me wrong, there were times that I would come off a call and cry my eyes out. There was times I'd be on a call with somebody and cry, I would be so down and depressed inside myself that to a point where I didn't even know who I was. I was like, how can I go onto a networking call to talk about who I am and how I can help businesses fire step when I didn't even know who I was? And so I just continued meeting new people, and every day got better by 1 second. And I could tell, because I'd come off the calls and then I'd be like, oh, normally I would cry now. and now I'm not. It might be a bit later on, and then all of a sudden it just starts to get better every day, just tiny minute steps.
Wow.
And so I forced myself to do more and more of that. I could see the change happening. So I just said, okay, well, this is what I've got to do. I've just got to go to as many events as I can. I've got to meet people, because if I surround myself by the people with the right mindset, then surely I'm going to become those people. I'm going to have that right mindset. And so that's what I did. So went to loads of networking events, went to mindset events, coaching events, sales events, where they were just full of positivity. They were just pouring it on top of you. And I'll hold my hand up. I was there like a leech. I'll be like, yeah, I want it. I'll take it all. I can't give you anything right now, but I'm going to take all of that. Thank you very much. And so the challenge was, how could I take that energy and use it for the power of good? And so that's what I did. I started to just introduce people. I started to make a difference in other people's lives without even realize I was doing it, until I got to a point where we came out of the first lockdowns in Melbourne, and I got an email to say, hey, we want to hire somebody. I'm like, oh, great, getting some clients in. But all of this came from the work without me realizing it. All of the work from all the networking events, all the introductions. There was no sales from me because there was no point, because no one was going to recruit anyone. And so
wow.
it meant that I had a reputation already, because a reputation of always being around, showing up to events when I say I'm going to go somewhere, introducing people when I said I was going to do it. And of course, when you introduce 100 people to 100 people, that's 200 people then all of a sudden who are talking about you. And so, it's funny, because funny is not the right word, but I'll use it. It's funny because I was talking to somebody about it last week, this story, and they said, well, how are you now? And I said, I'm better. I'm way better than I was, 100, 200% better. But that doesn't mean I still don't think about it. Still doesn't mean I'm not affected by it. Still doesn't mean I still don't have those gremlins in my head that go, hey, you can't do this. Like, look what you did before. Look at the past.
Yeah.
Days I still think about my ex, my partner. I still think about the life we had, the business we had, the good times, the bad times. Sometimes I scream and swear really loudly at the moment of thinking. And sometimes it makes me cry with joy. And it's about having steps to take and people around you. And this is why I go to all these events, because I know there's going to be positive people around. I go and hang around with positive people. Why wouldn't I want to do that? It makes my life so much easier. We have days like this. It's a gloomy day, and Mondays are never a fun day for me. It's just like I suppose, a corporate mindset that I have. But I know that good things are going to happen. I know that good things are going to happen this week because I plan them. I know that I'm going to meet Karen. I know Karen's going to give me inspiration, and she's a very positive person. So why wouldn't I want to meet you every 2 weeks? And so I use it. I use my network to my advantage. But the benefit of that, yes, I take from that. I take thank you so much to my network, but I give back in spades by introducing them, by promoting them, because it's a payoff. Businesses pay off. It doesn't always have to be money, but it's something. I take from our friend Edward Zia. He's a very positive, inspirational guy, and so I take from him. Thank you very much for that positivity. But I give back because I advertise all of his events. I talk about what he's doing. I invite people to his events, because we've got to pay back somehow. And he doesn't ask for thousands of dollars. He's not that type of person. But there's so many ways you can create a positive journey for yourself. And that's the beauty of life, is you can go and plan the next 20 years of your life if you wanted to. And if you followed that, and as long as you had the right steps to take, then there's only one way it can go. And, that's what I love about life now, is that I don't know what's going to happen in the next 10 minutes. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Like, I have my plan, but it could be an email, it could be a phone call, it could be anything that changes my life. And by me saying yes to a lot of things opens a lot of doors. And people go, how do you have time to do stuff? I go, well, I just plan it, I time block it. And I say yes because I know that good things are going to come from that. Good things are going to come from this Friday when I come and see you, Karen, at the Sofitel in Brisbane. There's going to be good people there. There's going to be, so I plan it. Why wouldn't I make sure that I have time to do the things that bring me positivity?
Wow. Wow, Bobby. All I can say is, wow, what an amazing, amazing story that you've shared. I know you've shared it to me before, but each time you share it and we learn, we talk about all of these things in your life, your business that you grew, like you say, from 70 to 4.2 million. And then what happened from there on over those next couple of years. I just really want to say thank you for your sharing from the heart and your honesty. It's not hard. It's not easy to do that either. You find it difficult to go and network with people. I'm sure that it hasn't always been as easy for you to sit there and talk about that either. And I know one of the things that we worry about when we do share our stories is what other people will think, how we will look, anyone who's going to have judgment about something, and of course, those who have made it really clear that they've had judgment about us in our life and something we did or didn't do. So I really want to applaud you for your courage to share that story. And I think we've got Yusuke Hayashi here. I don't know Yusuke. I don't know if I've said that correctly. Hi, who's actually sent a message so we can see who's here, listening, and I'm sure other people will be watching this too. Excuse me. So yeah, there's so many things I'd like to speak to about what you've said. First, I'm very, very sorry for your loss, for initially your separation from your wife, because your relationship, you decided that your relationship wasn't what you wanted, and then secondly for your loss of her in that way. I think it's if you can compare, I think losing someone from suicide is probably one of the worst ways of losing a loved one, even if they're formerly loved or pre-loved, or you still love them, but you're not, together. And I know that we can still love the person that we decided not to continue with for various reasons. And that's a boundary thing. Often it's like, well, I'm not prepared. I'm not getting, or I'm not being treated, or I'm not, happy in this relationship. And so I'm not going to continue it, which, as I say, is nothing about them necessarily not being who you want them to be. It's about you putting up your own rules and boundaries around it. So that's a very brave thing to do too. So I wanted to...
Yeah, that was, building up to building up to the decision for me to leave the relationship. That was hard work. Hard because your life changes. You've got to make a commitment and go, okay, well, I'm prepared that I'm going to lose everything as a worst case scenario. And in my mind, that wasn't going to happen, but it did. The worst case did happen, and I'd never wish it on anybody. And the hardest part about it all is that that you're part of that decision for someone else to do what they did. There's some of that decision is because you're there. You were doing that. You hurt that person, or broke that person's heart, and that for one of the reasons, there's multiple reasons around why she did what she did. But I take full not responsibility is not the right word, but I know that I made a decision. I know that decision was going to hurt somebody, but the other way around was hurting me. Yeah. And sometimes there's no way through that. Sometimes there's no discussion. You can have as many discussions as you want. If it's still not going, you have every right to live your life how you want to live that. But you have to be prepared for consequences of that decision. It's never as easy as people think it's going to be. And as long as when I went into that decision, I knew that I was going to have to start everything again, and then to slowly pick yourself up, and then to be hit even harder, and have to make it not about me. that was also hard, because trying to go into the world of going, hey, right, this happened, and yes, I feel sorry for myself, but a life has been lost, and there's a family that's lost a daughter, and that was painful. It still pains me today, but I have to make a commitment to myself and my family and my friends, and also to my ex-wife, that hey, right, I am going to make sure that I live my life to the fullest and do what I can to succeed, because even though we went through a rough time, she would understand that, she would get that, she would want me to do that. And so what's the other way, that I just do what she did, or just end up doing nothing? And I feel like, especially on the journey, when I talk about it, people can take inspiration from the story. They can take inspiration. This person did this great thing, something really, really bad happened, and then the person did something else amazing. That's what life is. That's what life gives you, that opportunity. And that's why we've got to be in the game, we've got to be in it, to make sure that we can go and make that change and make a difference in people's lives.
Yes, and there's so many points I can speak to here too. One is when you're in the grief, and I have a program that I take people through who really are they're right in the middle of their trauma and their grief, and it's called Standing Firm When Your World is Shaking. And we say to people, have the grief, but don't let the grief have you, because we all have to grieve. We've all got to go through the steps of grieving. There's 5 steps of grieving, and we do it naturally. If we don't, then it's going to come back later. But then there's a point in our life where we say we either choose to remain a victim of that grief, or we draw a line. We literally draw a line in the sand and say, don't let that grief have us. Let yourself move forward. Go through the hero's journey. There's always a sacrifice that the hero makes to get to the other side. And I am so thrilled to know you, Bobby. I am so proud of, not that it's my thing, but I'm proud to know you and know that you have decided not to be a victim. The thing is, everything in our life happens through our thinking. And I'm not saying that what your wife chose to do was because of you, but I'm definitely saying that when you told yourself you could lose everything, you pretty much manifested that. And if only I could get across to people that it is our thoughts that are dictating and causing what we experience in life. There is a process that occurs, and the start of it is from our thinking. And so, there's a universal law of thinking, which I'm going to be talking about with Tim, actually, the person I brought up the wrong meeting for. And it's wherever we place our attention. In other words, whatever we're thinking about, wherever we're placing our attention on, the universe reads it as our intention, what we want, and it basically gives us what it thinks we're asking for. And so you have moved from also, our thoughts are a vibration, they're a frequency, and when you are in that shame, that state of victimhood, that state of, oh my gosh, you must have been down near zero in your frequency, because shame and hurt and all of those are down below 100. They know this. This is proven science, that one can measure the frequency that our thoughts are at. They go right through our body, through every cell, the frequency, down through our nervous system, down our spine. That frequency is emitting from our thoughts through our entire body. And the ruling state of our mind is made up of various mental attitudes which we adopt towards things, events, life in general. And if you adopt attitudes that are brought in mind, optimistic in tone and true in your life, your predominant mental state will correspond and exhibit a highly progressive tendency in your life.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the ways that you and we can get through, just to talk about the resilience, is you will not get resilience unless you change your thoughts and realize that while you're in those thoughts of shame and hurt and being harmed, being hurt, being having bad things having happened to you, when you're in that and when you're thinking about that stuff, you're going to stay in that vibration. And it's just like if you're tuned in to the news channel and there's nothing but negative news coming through, which is what the normal media put on the news channels. There's nothing but negative news. And yet someone else, you might be in the negative news channel. I know you don't listen to the news, Bobby, but let's say you were in the negative news channel and I was on the House and Garden or a really great cookery channel. Different channels, different frequency that I've tuned into. You can't get that frequency when you are in the negative news. You can't get the happy cooking channel or the House and Garden channel. You're in the wrong frequency. You've got to change your frequency and tune into something better. And that's how we work as spiritual beings, is that we're only going to get more of the same, which you did for a period of time, and then you suddenly, for some reason, you've got a message to tell you to start networking. Somehow someone told you that message, start with, or you came up with it. You asked a question. You may well have asked a question.
Yeah, it's so interesting you say that, because I remember two things. One was when we went into the first lockdown, I made a commitment. I said, I'm not going to listen to the news. I'm not going to watch the news. I used to watch the news because just see what was going on. I thought, I'm not going to do it. I know enough people, or I'll be meeting enough people. They can tell me, hey, do you know this is it? So I didn't. So I made that commitment, and then I started to realize that, when you look at the news, it was just some of the news. Like, this is some of the news that we want you to know. They don't tell you all the good stuff that was going on. It would be like all the bad stuff. So I was like, okay. And then when you're talking about that message, it was quite funny, because I was on my computer, and I remember it to this day, and for something came over me in a way, and it happened again when I started doing face-to-face stuff. I sat there and I was part of a networking group called Fresh. They had a lot of online events all around, especially around Melbourne and stuff. Well, they were face-to-face, but everything went online. And automatically, my hand and whatever the communication was made me put all the events in my calendar for the rest of the year. Just without even thinking about it, just went and did it. Like, I'm not, at that point, I'm not a networker, I'm still want to be organized. And so maybe it was just the organization part of me. And so I went and put them all in my calendar. And so that meant that no one else could book a time in. It meant that that's when I was going to go. And so that's how I went to 2, 3, 4 events a week. And I did exactly the same thing happen to me. Only about 4 months ago, I was like, right, I need to do some face-to-face networking. What are the options? So BX is one, and BNI. And I thought, I didn't want to do BNI again, so I'll go to a BX. So I went to a BX meeting. I enjoyed the format, so I could call, so I joined that. And then again, I had this message or this thing that came over me, and I put every BX event that is around me in my calendar. So that's maybe sometimes 6, 7 events a week in the calendar. But what it meant was that I was dedicated to that time. I knew I was going to meet people. I know I'm going to meet positivity. And so when you talk about this message, it really did feel like somebody was controlling my hand just to go and book these things in, because that's where I knew I was going to be able to go and draw positivity from that environment and that world. And it's just funny how you spoke about it in that way, in that kind of something happened, and it was literally just sat at my desk and something went off, and I just had to go and book it in, and now I do the same thing with the face-to-face stuff. not because of the same kind of trying to get out of a dark space, but still want to be I still need positivity around me. I still want to be around good people, and also want to be able to help people. So the way I do that is by going to the meetings.
And you talked about going to the meetings, and you talked about connecting people, right? And that was one thing that you knew you could do, and that you enjoyed doing, and you felt good about doing that. And when you did that, feeling good, feeling worthy, feeling useful, feeling helpful is a high vibration, Bobby.
Yeah.
And so, because our feelings are vibrations as well, put us into a frequency as well. And so what happened was you gradually pulled yourself from this really low frequency that you were in by taking action and doing things up to a vibration that was going, that will be tuning you into the house and garden, or the happy cooking channel. And that's how we do it. And one of the things I just want to, another thing I want to offer to our listeners is the question. So when you don't know what to do, ask a question. The quality of our lives and the quality of the messages we will get is directly proportionate to the quality of the questions we ask. So don't ask little questions. Ask big, powerful questions. One of the questions I asked when I changed my life in a situation that was really, really difficult, as we talk about, was so huge. I had no idea how I could do it, but I asked, how can I do it anyway? And how can I create this? And it was something that I felt was impossible at the time to create, right? And yet I got an answer the next day. I got an idea, I got a message. And then I went to my business partner and said, hey, how about this? I thought on it and expanded it a bit, got some detail to do with it, and said, hey, why don't we try this? And he said, yeah, I'm happy to try it, And that's how I got out of a really bad situation. It was a financial situation. I may not have talked about it, but I won't go into the detail here because we don't need to. The point is, we don't have time to, I should say. The point is that there's a bit of a process through all of this, and we promised our listeners that we would give them some tips around getting through the storm and finding that resilience. So the first thing you've talked about, Bobby, is actually recognizing that you're in a storm, okay? And there's a storm, and no matter where you are, if you look at a boat in the middle of the storm, there's a famous story I know about a sailor who was in the storm, and it didn't matter what he did. All of the things that he'd learned in the past about what to do in a storm, nothing worked until he realized that there's an eye in the middle of the storm that's like the calm. And if you can go to that and say, sit, listen, ask the question, find your intuition, tune into it, and ask a powerful question. What do I do next? What's the next step to achieve something is so much more than what we are achieving now, something that we would really love in our life that we have no idea how we're going to get there. Start to build that, ask that question, and then start to build that possibility in our minds. Start to imagine that we can come out of this storm and go for something that we don't even think is possible at the time. And then you'll get some answers when you have some clarity around where also that would be, where your life would be when everything's worked out again. And you've already been there, Bobby. You've already been where life has been pretty good. Maybe not 100%, but pretty good. Let's get that vision for you of where it is, where you want to be when everything in all the 4 areas of our lives are we're just living our big dream. right? And then build that picture in detail and specificity. Write it out like a story, the next chapter of your life, as if it's already happened in the present tense. That's how we start. That's the process of finding that resilience and rebuilding to get to a life that we would love. Because most of us haven't even scratched the surface of our potential, our capacity to live and do and be what we would love. Most of us, they know this. This is proven once again. Most of us only use 10%, 15% of our capacity to be who we could be in our lives. And it's when you start to become that person who you could be, who you would love to be, and it involves making a difference in other people's lives, for sure, right?
Yeah.
When you start to make big inroads on that, that's when you start to feel fulfilled. That's when you really have that feeling, and the more of it that you get, the more you will attract. The more you will attract in ways of, like our reticular activation system, you will get people, opportunities, circumstances that will show up and say, here, Bobby, this is what you can do, or this is someone who can help you, or this is some opportunity for you that you can take to become that person that you would love to be. And when we're operating at that frequency, we're open to seeing those, because in reality, the opportunities are there and are presented to us all the time, but we don't always see them. It's just like I said, the reticular activation system that works when we bought a car, or we're looking to buy a car, and suddenly we see hundreds of that car on the road the next day. They were always there, but we just didn't see them. And it's the same with our opportunities. They're always being given to us, but we just don't see them because we haven't opened and expanded our minds and been specific on what it is we actually want. So when you started asking for things, then you got ways of getting them shown to you.
Yeah, it's what I found was that I wasn't aware of the opportunities. Like, it was sometimes, or aware that I had even gone through the storm. Like, I've got through the storm. So you've got to be aware about the situation that you're in. You've got to understand the feelings, understand the moment that you're in. Because if you're not, you could move into let's say that was the storm phase, and now you've got a smooth sailing phase. If you don't realize that you're in the smooth sailing phase as well, you miss so many opportunities because you're still in the same mindset of, oh my God, it's a storm, it's a storm, it's a storm. You have to move on, right? If we keep connecting ourselves to the bad things or the good things that happen, both of them, then we miss out on the other things that happen in front of us. And this is why I go to these events, because, and I do so much for people, because the more that I am out there doing things and my radar is correct, then I can see the opportunity. The opportunity might be so minute that I might just hear a word about something, rather than it going, hey, we want to recruit somebody, as an example. It might be just a word. And if I'm not in the right mindset to be able to see that moment, because I'm still in the storm mindset, that you can miss out on so many things. And it can be a challenge, because we want to be in that, what we would probably call a safe kind of mindset of, bad things are going to happen, and our brains kind of force us sometimes to look after ourselves and think about the bad things for whatever reason it might be, and sometimes you've got to challenge yourself and go, okay, well, I'm going to look for that good things that happen. Like today, we just mentioned it's really rainy here for us. Most people would hate that. I love it. It's beautiful. But if I don't take notice of it and enjoy that moment, then the next time we get rain could be 6 weeks, for all we know, where we are. And so, I'll miss this moment if I don't enjoy it. And so we've got to keep our eyes open. And you mentioned like the storm and things like that. That storm's going to come back again. There's going to be a storm. There's going to be a storm at some point. You can't go through life without them. But the beauty about it, if you open your eyes to the storm and go, okay, well, you're coming anyway, whatever happens, I'm going to take you head on, because as soon as I get through that storm, I know good stuff's going to happen. And that's what normally happens. You find it, but you find that the good stuff happens after a bad situation. But if you're not open to it, you don't see it, and you just assume that you're already still in the storm when you're not.
Yes, Bobby. And also, I want to add about the storm is that it's learning to respond, not react, and respond in what's the learning from this storm, because there's a learning in every situation that we encounter, even if it's simply what we learn. What's the good in the storm? There's some good that comes from every situation that we encounter, even if it's only what we've learned. Because every time we learn something, our body, our spirit goes to another level. So be aware that you can respond or you can react. If you react, it's out of gut instinct and it doesn't really serve us. If you take a moment and respond and ask yourself, well, what is it that I'm learning from this? What is it that what will be the outcome by this being given to me? And there are many, empathy. From your storm, Bobby, you have an enormous amount of empathy for anyone in any of those situations that occurred during that whole period of a few years. Other people don't have that empathy. They have no idea what it is like to be married, have a marriage breakup, and or lose a loved one in any way, let alone the way that you did. So the empathy that you have developed from that situation is irreplaceable, So Bobby, once again, I'm running out of time, so I want to say thank you so much for sharing everything you've shared. And to our viewers, I'm sure you too will applaud Bobby for everything he's shared and all of the great tips and inspiration that he's given us. So we'll say goodbye. Bobby, is there any last comment you'd like to add before we finish this up? And see you next time.
Yeah, I think that it's just about being kind to yourself as well. Has to start with you. Other people can tell you you're wonderful, whatever. If you're not telling it to yourself, and some people we've been brought up about, you don't want to talk about yourself in a way that you think that you're amazing, etc. And I think that is, we've got to do it from inside. If we don't think that we are, then we're not. And I think that we all have superpowers. We all have, at the end of the day, we're human beings on whatever you want to think we're living in at the moment or whatever. Wherever we are, it's crazy. And so, you've got an opportunity in front of you. Not many people ever born. And so you've got this opportunity to go and do something that you want in life, but you've got to be kind to yourself. You've got to look in that mirror and you've got to love yourself, because if you don't do it, because really you're on your own, like most of the time, you've got to love yourself. So look in the mirror, get used to how you look, get used to how you feel. You can, just be positive, and life's so much easier. I'm not saying just by being positive, all your problems are going to be fixed, but it's going to help you through the day. And that's what helps me. Some days that I think the whole world's going to fall down, but I, still get up and go, okay, well, I've been through a lot of things. Good things are going to happen. Just be kind to yourself.
I love that, Bobby. And I want to add to that, we live a life, and maybe it's not the life that we would love. And it's so important to ask ourselves, why am I doing this? Why am I in this place, either working really hard and not being able to spend time with my family, or whatever I'm doing that I don't love in my life? What's it costing me? What is the cost to me? Not necessarily financial. It could be health. It could be to my family's, my relationship with my family and pay attention to what it's costing us, because we want to build a fire for change inside of us. If we're casual with life, life will be casual with us. So here's the deal. As Bobby said, life is short. Not one of us know how much time we have left. Not one of us. And I've been around long enough, a bit longer than Bobby, and I've worked with people who thought they've had another 20 or 40 years, or know people who thought they've had another 50 years. And then in their 30s or 40s or 50s or 60s, something's happened, and it's happening more and more often these days. Not one of us is guaranteed another day of life. Not guaranteed it. We have this day, and this is the day we were given the opportunity to make decisions that matter to us. So if you want to make a change, think about how you're meant to make a change in your life to be that person you would love to be, so that you can be, do, have, and live the life you would love.
Beautiful.
So on that note, I'll say thank you again. Thank you, listeners. Thank you to everyone. Wonderful chat, Bobby. And we'll see you with Bobby in 2 weeks' time. Bye, Bobby.
Bye.